Welcome to English Gateway, where learning English becomes an exciting adventure. Today we are about to explore the life of one of the most controversial figures in history, Adolf Hitler. Love him or hate him, there is no denying that his story is filled with dreams, failures, ambition, and immense power. From a young boy with big dreams to a man whose actions changed the world forever, this is the story of Adolf Hitler like you've never heard before. So, are you ready? Put on your headphones, sit back, and join us as we dive into this incredible journey. Not only will this story improve your English, but it will also keep you fascinated until the very end. Our story begins on April 20th, 1889, in a small town called Braunau am Inn in Austria. On that day, a baby boy was born to Alois and Clara Hitler. They named him Adolf. At that moment, nobody could have imagined that this little boy would one day become one of the most influential and controversial men in modern history. As a child, Adolf was not very different from other boys. He loved spending time outdoors, drawing pictures, and dreaming about a bright future. But life at home was far from perfect. His father, Alois Hitler, was a strict and disciplined man. He wanted Adolf to study hard and eventually get a government job just as he had done. However, Adolf had a completely different dream. "I want to become an artist," he would often tell his mother, Clara. Clara loved her son deeply and always supported his dreams. But despite her love and encouragement, she could never change Alois's mind. However, Adolf's childhood was often filled with arguments and tension. His father strongly believed that art could never provide a stable future. "Painting is not a real profession," Alois would often say angrily. Most of the time, Adolf remained silent. Deep inside, he felt hurt, but he rarely showed his emotions. Instead, he held on tightly to his dream of becoming a famous artist someday. When Adolf was 13 years old, tragedy struck the family. His father, Alois Hitler, died unexpectedly. Many people thought that Adolf would finally feel free and be able to follow his dreams without opposition. But losing his father left a deep emptiness in his heart. As time passed, Adolf began to lose interest in school. Once considered a capable student, he slowly became careless about his studies. Teachers often said, "Adolf is intelligent, but he lacks discipline." He spent more time drawing and imagining his future than focusing on his education. Art had become his greatest passion, and nothing else seemed to matter. After finishing school, Adolf decided to leave home and move to Vienna, the capital of Austria. He was filled with hope and excitement. "Vienna is the city of art," he thought. "This is where I will become a famous painter." With dreams in his heart and confidence in his abilities, Adolf applied to the Academy of Fine Arts, one of the most respected art schools in the country. He eagerly waited for the results, believing that his future was about to begin. But destiny had something very different in store for him. When the results finally arrived, Adolf's heart was shattered. He had failed to gain admission to the Academy of Fine Arts. The school believed that his work was not good enough. For Adolf, it was a painful disappointment. He felt embarrassed and heartbroken, but he refused to give up. "I'll try again next year," he told himself with determination. Filled with hope once more, he submitted another application. But sadly, the answer remained the same. For the second time, the Academy rejected him. This failure crushed his dreams and left him feeling completely lost. Without a proper education or a stable job, life soon became extremely difficult. Adolf found himself living in small and dirty rooms. Sometimes he had no choice but to spend nights in shelters and on the streets. To survive, he painted postcards and small pictures which he sold to tourists for very little money. Every day became a struggle. "Why is life so unfair?" he often wondered. During these difficult years, another tragedy struck his life. His beloved mother, Clara, passed away after suffering from illness. Her death broke his heart. Now Adolf felt completely alone. The woman who had always supported and loved him was gone. Anger and frustration slowly began to grow inside him. Instead of accepting his failures, he started blaming others for the problems in his life. Years passed, and then in 1914 everything changed. Europe was on the edge of a major conflict. World War I had begun, and Adolf saw it as an opportunity to give meaning to his life. Without hesitation, he joined the German army. At last he felt that he belonged to something bigger than himself. Finally, he believed he had found a purpose. As a soldier, Adolf Hitler found something he had been searching for all his life: a sense of purpose. He felt proud to wear the uniform and serve Germany. During World War I, he worked as a messenger, carrying important information across dangerous battlefields. It was a risky job, but Adolf performed his duties with courage and determination. His bravery earned him 2 military medals, and he became respected among many of his fellow soldiers. But in 1918, the war finally came to an end, and Germany suffered a devastating defeat. For Adolf, the news was impossible to accept. "Our leaders have betrayed us," he angrily declared. Like millions of Germans, he was shocked and humiliated by the loss. The country was facing economic problems, political instability, and widespread frustration. Adolf believed that Germany needed strong leadership to restore its pride and power. After the war, he returned to a nation that was struggling to recover. Many people were unemployed, hungry, and disappointed with the government. Amid this chaos, Adolf saw an opportunity. He joined a small political organization known as the German Workers' Party. At first, the group was relatively unknown, but Adolf quickly discovered that he had a talent that would change his life forever. He was an extraordinary speaker. Whenever he stood in front of a crowd, people listened carefully. His speeches were filled with passion, anger, and promises of a better future. "Germany will rise again," he declared with confidence. Slowly but surely, more people began to follow him. Without realizing it, Adolf Hitler had taken his first steps toward a path that would eventually change the course of world history. He soon renamed the group into the National Socialist German Workers' Party, known as the Nazi Party, using propaganda, symbolism like the swastika, and mass rallies to build a strong political movement that appealed to fear, pride, and anger. Although his ideas were extremely dangerous and rooted in extreme nationalism and racism, especially against Jewish people and other minorities, yet his popularity continued to rise during Germany's crisis years. And in 1923 he attempted to overthrow the government in an event known as the Beer Hall Putsch, which failed and led to his imprisonment, during which he wrote Mein Kampf outlining his ideology and political vision. And although the attempt failed, it gave him national attention and time to reorganize his strategy. After his release, he focused on gaining power legally through political participation, and by exploiting economic depression and public frustration in the early 1930s, his party gained massive support, eventually leading to his appointment as Chancellor of Germany in 1933, after which he quickly transformed the democratic system into a dictatorship by eliminating opposition, controlling media, education, and law enforcement, and building a totalitarian state where loyalty to him became central. He established organizations like the SS and Hitler Youth to enforce ideology and train the next generation under Nazi beliefs, while simultaneously launching aggressive economic and military rebuilding programs that reduced unemployment and created an illusion of national recovery, which made many citizens support him despite the growing oppression, censorship, and loss of freedoms. And as his power expanded, he began implementing extreme racial policies that led to the persecution and systematic genocide of millions of Jews, Roma people, disabled individuals, and others during the Holocaust, one of the darkest atrocities in human history, while at the same time preparing Germany for war. And in 1939 he invaded Poland, triggering World War II as Britain, France, and later other global powers entered the conflict. Initially, Germany achieved rapid military success across Europe. But as the war continued, the resistance strengthened, and Germany began to face defeats on multiple fronts. And by the early 1940s, the war situation turned against Hitler as Allied forces advanced. Cities were destroyed by bombings, resources collapsed, and public morale inside Germany weakened, while internally Hitler became increasingly isolated, paranoid, and dependent on his closest followers as he directed military decisions from his bunker in Berlin. And by 1945, Soviet forces surrounded the city, marking the final collapse of Nazi Germany. Despite being advised to surrender, he refused and insisted on continuing resistance even as defeat became inevitable. And during the final days, he married Eva Braun inside the bunker, and later on April 30th, 1945, he ended his life as Soviet troops closed in, bringing an end to his regime shortly after Germany surrendered in May 1945, leaving Europe devastated with millions dead and entire regions destroyed. And in the aftermath, the world learned painful lessons about dictatorship, propaganda, unchecked power, and hatred, leading to efforts to rebuild nations and prevent such tragedies from happening again, through international cooperation and human rights awareness. Today, Adolf Hitler's story is remembered not as one of success but as a warning about how fear, anger, and prejudice can be manipulated to gain power and cause unimaginable destruction, reminding us that leadership without morality can lead to disaster, and that societies must stay aware, informed, and united to protect peace, justice, and humanity. Because history teaches us that every decision made by individuals and nations shapes the future, and when power is combined with hatred, it can lead to irreversible consequences. But when guided by compassion, understanding, and responsibility, it can help build a better world for everyone. And that is the lasting lesson from this chapter of history that should never be forgotten as we move forward into a more aware and peaceful future.